cool hip thing, but that's fine. Nothing wrong with that. It's your brand if that's the direction you want to go in. And I think they've been very successful at it. Right, morning everybody, welcome back to the Wednesday Bike Club. So what are we talking about today? Well, a couple of things. So I wanted to, which I will do in the second part of this video, is talk a little bit about this sort of Royal Enfield bashing that seems to be going on a little bit. And I'm going to sort of look into that a little bit and sort of give my views on it, and where I think sort of Royal Enfield are, and sort of look at the sort of basic facts really around that. But first, I was going to talk about bike insurance because one of my subscribers commented, so would I talk about multi-bike policies and stuff. So I thought I'd cover that. I did have a little look last night, and when I was sort of researching this for this morning, and you can tell I'm at the round tree. It's so nice under the shade. It's the morning time, but goodness me, as you can see, the pitch is just, it's making everything bright. It's bringing all the light values up because there's so much reflection from all the lack of grass, the lack of green to absorb the light. It's amazing, isn't it? Anyway, so yes, multi-bike policies. So I thought I'd give you my experience of those and my thoughts on it really. So I've got two bike policies, and I've got one with Carol Nash. And there was no particular rhyme or reason why I went with these two companies. It was just, I think it was probably what happened was that I probably did a go compare originally, and then they came out cheapest, and then I just went with them. But my experience of Carol Nash, so is actually positive, to be honest with you, only from one minor thing. So I've got up until a couple of weeks ago, I had 4 bikes with Carol Nash. Now I think the limit is 5 for a multi-bike policy, I think, and then you have to go on to, you have to have another policy. So I had the Harley XR, I've got the Stonello, I've got the Classic 350, and I had the Meteor on there. And that's why it's changed, because obviously 2 of those are gone, been replaced with one. So in terms of cost, so the cost for those 4 bikes, if you remove the credit side of it, and I don't know why I was doing that monthly, but it might have just been because, you sort of, when you're starting buying stuff like that, it depends where you are in your monthly cycle, if you like, in terms of, that sounded a bit weird, didn't it? In your financial cycle, whether you've got the money there to do that one-off or not. But that was costing me £235 a year. So when you add, they put like a broker's fee, because a lot of these companies, you think they are the insurance company, but they're not, they're just brokers, aren't they? So the broker's fee was £35 on top of that. So I think it was about £270, I think I was paying that per year, which I thought for the 4 bikes, for what they are, the Harley, and they're big, powerful bikes and things. I didn't think that was too bad. I'm interested what your experiences is. One thing there's obviously, it's interesting because you've got a spread there. So I've got Indian bikes, so you've got Royal Enfield on there, 2 Royal Enfields, and they don't seem to be that bad to insure, I think, and that's because I think the cost repairs, you can get parts for them and all the rest of it, which I'm going to come on and talk about later when I talk about Enfield. But I think and obviously the initial purchase price of those bikes is pretty low, isn't it? So that does affect, I think what affects premiums, and I think people have found this with Chinese bikes, but there may be, I'm interested to know if that's changing for anybody, and it's the same with Chinese cars, that the insurance costs were quite high, because quite often you were getting if you just fell over and scratched it, it was almost registered as a total loss. So rather than you couldn't get it repaired because you couldn't get the parts for it, they do it as a total loss. So you end up paying a lot more for the insurance. So the bike is cheap to buy, but it's dearer to insure. So yeah, I think regards to Harley and the Moto Guzzi and that, I think I think 265 was actually, it's quite good, isn't it, for 4 bikes? Do you not think? The only thing I would say about the Carol Nash, and I don't think it's reserved for a company like Carol Nash, I think it's the same for lots of other companies. And this is one of my experience when I took the Meteor and the Harley off and put the V85 TT on the other day, is that I thought, well, there's going to be a reduction. Now, my insurance renews at the end of September anyway. But I phoned them up and sort everything out. Great service, and they answer the phone quickly, and it's a UK call centre, and they're really, really nice. And, you know, I've never had any problem with them. They're always really helpful. So that's a plus point. But what you find is that there was a reduction in the premium, something like £2.80. And you think, oh, that's good. Although I did mishear him, I thought he said £28 or something. It was £2.80. But you pay an administration fee for them to change the policy. Now, yes, you don't expect people to do something for nothing, do you, obviously? But it's a slight kicker, isn't it, when they say, oh, it's a reduction in your premium of £2.80. So, oh, that's good, okay, oh, fair enough. But the admin fee's £30, so you owe us 27 quid. And you think, okay, to give it a one hand, take it away with the other. And I think that's pretty common. Now, I think some of you may be able to do this, Karen, you may be able to do this online, and I think that does save you half of that. I know that used to be the same with car insurances that I've had. You could do these things online, and it didn't cost you anything. So I think there is an advantage to finding an insurance broker or company that will do it online, and you save the admin fee. And what I always do actually is I pay that there and then, because you don't want to add that to if you're paying it monthly, you don't want to add that to your monthly figure, because you end up paying more than £30 because there's going to be interest on it. So I'd certainly in that respect. But I found, and I'm not sponsored by anybody in these insurance companies, Carol Nash was fine. You know, I had no issue with the multi-bike policy is great, and I'm not really going to go over that 5. I had 5 bikes at one point, and I've never had any issue with that. The other company I use, and for the life of me, I can't remember why I did it through another company. It may have been because of the 5 bike thing, and I went over that. So I did a policy where I've got my classic Triumph, my 62 Tiger, and which when I did that through, is it Footman James, which is then Bike Shore. So there's some link up there. So when I was trying to, you know, it's like you get sent the documents, but you never print them off, do you? You're hunting through your emails to try and find your documents, which is the right faff last night. But yeah, so that's Bike Shore, Footman James connected somewhere. So they did the Triumph for me. But when I went to insure the Kawasaki, the W650 with Bike Shore, Footman James, they insured that as a classic bike. And they said, no, that we actually accept that one as a classic. So I thought it was quite interesting, wasn't it? Because you'd think that it's a, what's that, is it a 2006 bike? Is it 2004, 2006? So that was good. So the cost of that insurance, I eventually found, for those 2 bikes was 174. So I think it's actually quite comparable with the other insurance, you know, 4 bikes, you know, 260, 70 quid, and then 2 bikes, 174. So probably not so bad. I think the Triumph on its own was about £90 from memory. So yeah, I've never really had to do any other dealings with Footman James. I'm sure it is Footman James, and Bike Shore. I'm sure they're all very much of a muchness. I think all you really need, isn't it? You just need to be able to not be sold anything extra while you're there. Just take bikes on, take bikes off, and get it done quickly. And I would say Carol Nash, because I've dealt with Carol Nash a lot more than Bike Shore. I'm sure Bike Shore equally is good, but they were very good, very quick and to the point, and no sort of trying to sell me anything else. You know, you're always going to get asked the thing, oh, when's your car insurance renewed, and have you got your house insurance? Because they're brokers, that's their business, isn't it? And you can always just say no and just move on. So yeah, that's my experience of them. I've had no issues, and I think the premiums have been very good from my side of things. But But yeah, that's my experience of bike insurers and multi-bike policies. No issue, and the two companies that I use are very good, or seem to be very good. Now, onto the Royal Enfield thing. Now, I'm not picking at any people in particular. I think there seems to be this thing that there seems to be a bit of a theme going on that Royal Enfield are struggling, and their sales are going down, and all the rest of it. And you know, the dealer network is very poor now, and it's not many dealers around. And I think you've got to. I think if you take Royal Enfield as purely something we see in the UK, that the UK Royal Enfield thing is indicative of what's going on in the rest of the world, I think you're missing the point. And I think you're missing a big factor out of that. Because if you look at where Royal Enfield's market in the UK, in terms of its whole worldwide sales, is actually only 0.4%. That's 0.4% of its entire global market. So I think that brings it into perspective that it's tiny. It's tiny. If you put it into Europe, and we're talking about an average now, in Europe it's 4%, 4 to 5% of Royal Enfield's global market is in Europe, is 4 to 5%. So it's like it's 100 times what it is in the UK, isn't it? It's a much bigger market. But even then it's tiny, and Royal Enfield's market is really, its home market is India. So, and when you think that they had a record year, I think last year, of 1.2 million bike sales, you've got to think that, that this isn't going to sound right. It's not that they don't care about the UK market and Europe, because they do. And I think you've got to think, well, why would you even bother for 0.4%, 0.4% of your global sales? But I think the UK is an important shop window for people. I think bike buyers, particularly in India, I think India quite often looks to the UK, particularly with their YouTube channels, that they see, UK buyers riding Enfields, and it gives them a little bit of prestige. That's going to sound horrible, that, and it's not. You've got to understand quite what I'm saying there, that it's the same thing, with the Chinese brands, where they were putting European branded components on their bikes. It's the same thing, really, where you put Brembo brakes on and, Pirelli tyres and all this sort of stuff on your bikes, because it gives the impression, and it gives you the impression that your brand is, the same as everybody else. It gives it credibility, and that's what that does. But the other thing, there's a couple of things here I think which are important, is that you think of Enfield and their dealer networks. So I did actually, what did I work it down? If people were talking about dealer networks, and we're sort of saying that Royal Enfield are, quite low. They're losing dealerships and all the rest of it. I think the important thing to remember is that dealerships are generally franchised. It's not the manufacturer that has those dealerships. It's individual people and companies that have that, and they take a concession, so they'll have Enfield in their showrooms. Like if you take somebody like Sykes, you've got Sykes Harley, Sykes Enfield, Sykes Vosges, Sykes Ducati. It's a family business, and they have Enfield there, and it's a fantastic dealership. And I really like the Sykes dealerships. They're only just in that area, and it's a family-run business. But I think the important thing to remember is that dealerships go down for different reasons. It's not necessarily because Enfield aren't supporting them. It's because, they're just not selling enough bikes. They're in the wrong area. They haven't got the right demographic there. Their heating bills are too expensive. The electricity is too expensive. They're just not turning over enough. And that's all about survival of the fittest, isn't it, I think, in that respect. But I think looking at dealership numbers, now I took these figures off Tinternet, and looking at the Enfield site, Honda and Triumph, okay? Now Enfield, well, let's go Honda. Now people say, well, Honda got a fantastic dealer network, blah, blah, blah. They got 57 dealers in the UK, 57. That's going off their site, okay? And that's just literally going out and counting them all. Triumph, okay, I've got 42, all right? They've got 42 dealerships. Enfield, I've got 49, all right? 49, I sat there and counted them all this morning, or last night. That's not a big difference, is it really? You know, that's only, Honda have only got 8 more and Triumph have got, you know, 7 less. So you think, well, that's pretty good in the mix of things. Now, I know we can say that, all right, they might not all be in the areas where you want them. But again, that's not Enfield's choice. They will try, I think Enfield will try and service an area which is devoid of their dealerships. And I think what they're trying to do, and we've had it here in Chichester, where they've teamed up with a service centre, with a particular garage, where you can get your bike serviced, where there isn't a dealership. But I think you can order your bikes through there. So rather than a full dealership, you can probably order your bike and it'll turn up there, but you can get it serviced there. And I think that's what they're trying to address, because having any sort of premises these days, unless you're really turning it over, it's, you know, it's so darn expensive, isn't it? You know, the premises is an absolute lost leader, isn't it, these days? Unless it's you tie it in with your, you know, your servicing and you are a repair centre or a warranty centre. And I think that's ridiculous. I think it's very difficult to be all things to all people. But of course it causes problems to people in different parts of the country. But if there just isn't the market there, you're not going to do it and make a loss. You know, why would you do that? And when you look at Enfield, why are you going to bother making a loss on something when it's only like 0.4% of your business? You know, so you'd think that for that tiny amount of business, that, you know, 49 dealerships is pretty good, really. So the brand must be viable in the UK, and I don't see it as struggling. Now, in terms of overall sales, there is this, they're still suffering from this problem slightly, whether you call it suffering or not, where you had GB Moto, who were their distributor at the time, when Enfield decided to go their own way and do it differently from GB Moto, that GB Moto then sort of flooded the market really with cheap Enfields, and that's really screwed the pooch, hasn't it? But I think in terms of people, I've heard people say, oh, it was much better when it was with GB Moto. Well, it might have been to a certain point, but GB Moto I see as a retailer that are, I'm going to get shot there in flames, stack it high, sell it cheap. And I think Enfield wanted more control of their brand and how it was perceived, rather than stack it high, sell it cheap. I think they wanted to improve the visuals of the brand, and I think that's done better with a bit more control of it, and in the sort of demographic and the style of the way they wanted to sell their bikes. You know, they wanted to be more in that sort of stylish, cool, hip thing, but that's fine. Nothing wrong with that. It's your brand if that's the direction you want to go in. And I think they've been very successful at it. But it's always going to upset a few people. But you hope that everybody comes along with you. But I think in terms of, you know, well, their bikes are getting expensive, and I don't think they really are. Not in the whole scheme of things. Things are more expensive, regardless. You know, you think of the 650 Enfields, like an Interceptor, it's still about $3,000 cheaper than a Triumph. And you try and get a Triumph service now. And also you look at the cost of servicing a Triumph for Bonneville. My friend's Mike, who's got the T120, it was about 300 odd quid for a service. It isn't harder to serve this Bonneville than it is to service this. It really isn't. So I don't know where that 300 quid comes from. And I think you're paying for your brand, aren't you, in that respect? And I know where Mike's come away from that and he thought, I don't think they've done that. I don't think they did that. You know, it's just a wipe with a cloth and, you know, change the oil and the filter in it. And so I think yes, prices are rising, but that's just in general, isn't it, really? When you're upping your brand image, and that costs money as well, and honestly, but I think you've got to really look at it in context of how small the UK market is, and that to service such a small market with such a small amount of bikes to buy, I mean, what was it? Something like 4,000, 4,500 bikes, something last year, whatever it was. You know, you're making so little out of that. You really are. That's why your bikes are a bit more expensive. You know, it's the size of your market, and I think we're sort of quite lucky that Enfield still see the value in investing in the UK. You know, they've got the driver training centre, haven't they, Enfield now? A bit like the BMW off-road thing. They do a training centre and stuff like that. So, you know, you've got to pay for, you know, to train the mechanics and everybody working on it. If you've got a service centre, you've got to train for the mechanics and that. So it costs money. I'm not saying that it's, you know, it's a pain, and I'm lucky. I'm in a privileged position where I can afford that, and I know people can't. But you can still get into the brand really cheaply. You know, I know some of the you subscribers have said to me, "Oh, I bought a Hunter for tuppence halfpenny the other day." What a great bike! What a great bike! They are good value, and I think they are well made. I don't think the quality's gone down. I don't think the quality control is bad at all. When you're making 1.2 million bikes, yes, you can say, well, Honda's much better and all the rest of it, but Honda have had their issues as well, haven't they? But I think at the price point that you're in, you're not going to get a Rolls-Royce quality of finish, but you're not paying a Rolls-Royce quality of price, are you, at the end of the day? But you're getting something which is robust and usable and enjoyable to ride. So I think you know, some of the sort of negative stuff I've seen about Enfield, I don't think it's deserved really in that respect. But you know, that's my personal view. I'd like to hear what your thoughts are. But if you don't like Enfield, you don't like Enfield, and if you do, you do, and you're always going to have that brand loyalty, aren't you? You know, no one's paying me to review Enfields or whatever bike it is. You know, I buy all my bikes, as you know, but I have borrowed bikes from Enfield, and they've never told me what I have to say. And they don't pay me to do it. So, but if as I've said to you guys before, if I was asked to look at something and I didn't like it, I wouldn't review it. You know, I've no interest in sort of being unkind to people. What's the point? You know, it doesn't serve anything, does it really? But yeah, I want to ride things that I think I'm going to like. I'm always happy to pick points out in things. So that wasn't very good, you know, things like the Enfield, like the Bear, the hard suspension, all the rest of it. But no one came to me and said, oh, you can't say that. Or you have to change that bit on the video. Well, no one said that at all, you know. And Enfield is still happy to give me bikes, so why not? And that's part of the joy, isn't it, and the fun of doing the YouTube channel with that. If you're lucky enough to get the opportunity to test new bikes and have them for a couple of weeks or a week, or it's fantastic. It's great. Why wouldn't I want to do that? That's one of the reasons I got into it for, because it's good fun. But there you go. Well, yeah, answers on a postcard anyway. But that's my views on multi-bike policies and the current Enfield debacle, is it? But I have no issue with Enfield, and I think they're probably doing really well. I think they're more than happy with what's going on in the UK with their bikes. You know, they're very popular, and it's serving their part of the market, which is infinitesimal, isn't it? But I think they're getting rewards from other aspects of that. Even though the bike sales are very small, they're getting rewards in other ways from that. There you are. Right, thanks for that. Enjoy the hot weather. I know it's going to be a lot cooler next week, isn't it? It's going to be a lot cooler. Well, actually, when you see this, it should be cooler, shouldn't it? And maybe everything's greened up a little bit. We'll see. Right, take care. See you soon. Look after yourselves.